Good morning, everyone. Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. Ms. Parker, would you start with the roll call?
Yes. Greg Privet,
Here.
Ursula Parker here, Eric Scobia,
I'm here.
Eldon Merrick,
Here.
Thomas DeWitt.
Here.
Everyone's here. We have a quorum.
Very good. Okay, so now we need to go ahead and approve the meeting minutes from January. Does everyone have a chance to read through them? Do we have any questions on the January minutes? There's no discussion. You have a motion.
Motion to approve this. Second.
And the February meeting minutes. Same thing. Does everybody have a chance to look them over and questions on them? Okay.
Second.
And it's approved.
Oh, you know what, Mr. Chair? I was confused on that. I was not at the January meeting, so I should not second that.
Okay, we'll strike that.
I'll make the second.
Thank you.
Staff updates and reports. Infrastructure capital improvement plan. Who's handling that one?
I've got that. So the truth in lending, you probably should have had that action items. I apologize if I didn't convey that correct. And we'll talk about ICIP before we do. It's no shame in your game. Does anybody need a refresher? I'm not exactly sure what ICIP is.
Please.
All right, Mitchell, if you would, let's bring this up. If I was broadcasting this out to the town to tell people about what ICIP is or was, you should have someone. I would use this as a flyer. The Infrastructure Capital Improvement Plan is a 5-year planning tool used by New Mexico cities. It's non-negotiable. Counties, tribes, and special districts to identify and prioritize future infrastructure projects. Each year, Portales submits an updated Infrastructure Capital Improvement Plan to the state of New Mexico to highlight the projects most important to our residents and our community. So these projects are anything really infrastructure. Water, roads, utilities, utility support, other things. ICIP is important to Portales because it helps secure funding. Now, we hear things like capital outlay and legislative session request, or the capital outlay process tells us to shift water-related things to the Water Trust Board, and that's true. When we're securing grants, though, and other funding sources, to have a higher rating of securing those grants and funding opportunities, these projects, water or not, need to be or should be on the Infrastructure Capital Improvement Plan. So it's integral that the Water Advisory Board or group or committee is invested in part of the process of racking and stacking and recognizing the infrastructure projects that we as a city put forward, and that you as an advisory board help rack and stack and endorse as we move forward and put these things on the 5-year infrastructure capital improvement plan. Does anybody need any more on the ICIP? Okay. The city of Portales is requesting the Water Advisory Committee your formal involvement in reviewing, evaluating, and recommending priorities for the city's 3 to 5 year ICIP. The involvement matters because it ensures cross-community collaboration and broad representation. It leverages your subject matter expertise in water, wastewater, A1A affluent water, meters, SCADA systems, rainwater harvesting, wells, well works, booster pump stations, lift stations, and any other associated projects that involve water. It increases transparency and public trust in water-related major infrastructure decisions. It prevents tunnel vision from limited staff perspectives and when evaluating and prioritizing water-related projects. Committee responsibilities moving forward, if you accept this responsibility, is to review the ICIP proposals that we put forward for any projects that may qualify for capital outlay funds or grants or anything else like that. Another responsibility is to evaluate the need, the impact, the cost, and the funding opportunities associated with ICIP, and to provide prioritized recommendations to city staff and council. The city would bring you projects that we believe are important to the city. You would assist in racking and stacking those, endorsing those, and after your endorsement, we'll take them to the city council. To be fair, without your endorsement, we will take them to city council. But it's more powerful if you endorse, or you provide the reason why you endorse, or you provide the reason why you don't. The participation in doing this allows you to be in discussions when council seeks clarification. Having looked at it, reviewed it, and worked on it, you can be a representative with your collective voice when the council asks questions on things that are on the ICIP. This serves to have a stronger ICIP program. It's instrumental in the success of grant applications and legislative funding requests. It makes a smarter long-term capital planning process, and it ensures equitable and well-justified infrastructure investment by having a broader cross-section of the community involved in the decisions and the racking and stacking of prioritization. I'm asking the committee to adopt a motion to formally establish the Water Advisory's role in the ICIP prioritization and recommendation process. Are there any questions of me at this time? If there's no questions at this time, I'm asking for a committee member to make a motion to establish the Water Advisory Committee's commitment to the City of Portales ICIP prioritization and recommendation process. Now, we may table this at this point, or we may postpone this at this point. Why? This should have been in the action items. It's in the discussion items. We can make a motion. Time is not of the absolute essence. We can make a motion to postpone this, put it in the action items for next meeting, and then we'll action this and get it locked in.
I have a question. So we have a ICIP meeting.
Yes.
Are you asking that we show up during those meetings, or is this going to be a separate meeting?
So what I'm asking the Water Advisory Committee is to weigh all things the city brings forward that has anything to do with water, wastewater, affluent water, SCADA related to water. I think I said affluent water, anything that's related to water. This committee would rack and stack those water priorities. Those racked and stacked water priorities will be brought to the ICIP committee with ranking. You can only put so many things per year in for different infrastructure capital improvement plan submissions. So this committee would rack and stack all things water. The ICIP committee would take those recommendations and then put together the overall city's ICIP, which includes roads, parks, cemeteries, water, anything else that falls under those types of things.
Mr. Chair, may I ask the mayor a question? Since this is an advisory committee, is there that same, and I get where you're coming from, Mr. City Manager, is there the same need for the action item since it's just a questionable recommendation? Or could we move on this?
I could give an off the cuff opinion, but without the research.
Okay, fair enough.
Since this isn't an emergency, and for the sake of caution, I would suggest postponing it until it was listed as an action item, just to be safe.
Fair enough.
Now, we don't have anything pending that's going to be delayed, or we're not going to lose any funding on this. No, we'll just get it.
This is just something you would like to have taken care of sooner rather than later, but it doesn't have to be today.
That is correct.
Okay.
So anyway, that is the information brief. The next Water Advisory Committee, if there aren't any questions, I'll bring this forward as an action item. We can go ahead and earmark that to put that down on the next agenda.
Great.
And then we'll do the same thing and ask for a motion to adopt this. Subject to questions? Okay, thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
So we don't really need a motion to postpone, do we, since it isn't even in action items?
No.
I didn't think so. Okay,
It just gets moved in there.
that's what I thought. Okay.
Next, staff update. Do you have anything on that?
Staff updates, okay, so the water department has a total of 22 employees, including me. We have one deputy director, which is Chris Mendoza. And from there, it's kind of broken down into 4 little sections. We have 6 in water. Well, 6 positions in water, 7 positions in wastewater, 6 positions in billing and service, and then 1 position for GIS mapping services. And out of all those positions, we have 5 open positions right now for the total water department.
What are those positions opening in?
We got 2 in water for labor, 2 in wastewater for labor sewer is what they labeled as. And 1 for clerk, but I believe they've already got one and about to hire one for that position.
Okay. Anything else?
Quick question.
So I was under the impression it was like more than 22, but the other 5 that were missing, that would make the 27.
No, that's 20. We got 22 total.
Oh, okay.
And out of that 22s that we're supposed to have, we got 5 open.
I just wanted to make sure I was clear on that.
Yeah.
How many of them are meter readers?
We have one that does it full time, and then Jay kind of helps with service and doing that at the same time. So that's a really full-time job right there.
Is there an opening, or one of them openings, is that for meter reading or?
No, we have some of the meters that are on the automatic meter reader, so they just go and verify the other ones. So hopefully with our plan in the future, we can put that position into better use with automated.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, 2 days ago, Mayor and I met with I would argue that it was an unofficial official meeting with a representative of the Office of State Engineer to talk about rainwater harvesting and permitting types and things like that. She believes, based on her words, we're on the right track with some rainwater harvest projects that are kind of rough order magnitude now. But we intend to do a full court press on pursuing non-permit required rainwater harvesting on different municipal buildings. Start to scratch out some rough order magnitude designs for those so that we can attack a twofold problem. One, temporarily holding water and defer its use to a later date, which would help us alleviate drainage in many instances. And 2, allow us to store water that we collect via rainwater harvesting to use at a later date when water is less available, i.e. dry periods of the year. So we're looking at attacking this from multiple fronts. 1, water conservancy, 2, drainage mitigation, and 3, recycling. And not only that, but green efforts, because water that goes on streets gets contaminated with petroleum products. And one of our arguments is water collected off of a low coefficient roof like the steel roof here, not contaminated by petroleum products. And we're able to put that cleaner water back into the environment. So we believe we have a good green light way ahead to move forward. So you'll hear more about rainwater harvesting in the city of Portales moving forward.
Comments? Okay.
That was kind of gone over through. What meeting was that?
We've had so many, I don't know. Public Works, maybe. I'm not sure.
Chat with manager.
I'll chat with manager about
Well,
that. See the work.
It was another committee.
I'm not sure. This week had 14 days in it.
Is that an official quote?
It is exciting. And we've discovered that it's an area that has a lot of gray area. So we happened onto a engineer that is excited with us to test the boundaries of that and willing to try to get Portales to be kind of a beta test that because other cities are asking the same questions we are. So hopefully we'll be able to utilize some of that.
Beautification.
Clean and beautiful. Okay. Right.
Okay, let's move on to the action items. On the presentation of the pilot well program, we're not going to have that today, but Eric is going to provide us with an update of what they've got going on, and we're going to look at potentially rescheduling that in the future. Eric?
Yeah, I guess first of all, I'll say that anything that RCEC, Roosevelt County Electric Co-op's involved in, as a committee member, I will be abstaining from any recommendation, any vote, or anything of the like. But when it comes to things that they're involved in, or that we're involved in. But I will give you an update. We talked a little bit at the last meeting about some SCADA control devices and some meters in the well field. And a good update. We've had a meeting with city staff last Friday, last week. And I think we've identified 3 locations to do a pilot program and put out some SCADA controlled devices and meters for the city and the well field. And so our staff at RCEC is very excited to get started on that. I believe Mendoza gave them the 3rd site yesterday, and so we're working on that. And working through different options to try to keep that as affordable as possible, to help the city procure all the equipment necessary, and hopefully we'll have those up and running very soon, and make them useful for the summertime. So I think the presentation today was supposed to be about the idea of this, and so we've actually had some good efforts made in the last couple of weeks to meet with city staff and get some things moving. So we're excited to get started and help out with that.
Got any questions?
Excited.
The comment that I'm looking forward to it moving in the right direction.
Is this going to be the same style setup as the one that your pilot demo?
Yes, it'll be just like the one that we have our pilot in our well field on our well. So
And if you haven't seen that in operation, I would suggest if you give it a chance to, please do. It's quite amazing.
My understanding is the Ace hardware buckets is what keeps it moving.
keeps us
Kind of an inside joke.
Yeah. He's referring to the pilot, of course, in our well field. It was a pilot to proof of concept project. And so there's an ACE bucket supporting one of the structures there. But of course, anything that's permanent would not have that, but it's a good joke.
We could find you some cinder blocks somewhere.
We'll find some cinder blocks or something.
Thank you very much. Next agenda item is presentation of the drought contingency plan. Everybody had a chance to look that over it. Oh, there it is. The mayor has asked us to bring this forward, get something that we can present to the city council to get this on the books and get moving with it. It's kind of the first true item that we've had. And now the next one will be the ICIP. We're going to move this board forwards. Any discussion on the drought contingency plan? Anybody got any comments? Everybody had a chance to look it over and come up with what they're doing with it.
I have, and I've got I've sent you a few items on it. Hopefully it's not going to be lengthy. I didn't realize it was going to do it quite this way, but that's fine.
I'll make sure that.
No.
everybody has an
Fair.
Opportunity to speak on it.
Right. I went through it and I saw some areas of adjustment, correction, or concern. First one being the plans adopted should be pursuant to New Mexico 1978 3-17-7, which is state authority for us to be able to implement as opposed to local ordinance. The state gives us the authority to have that local ordinance. Also, under let's see, I'm reading off my phone, I apologize. Under mayor authority, we in the last thank you. In the last in 2023, when all of this went down, we used the term emergency. And I would argue that that's going to have several different meanings. Ultimately, and someone please correct me if I'm wrong, when emergency hits, the mayor goes into authority. He's the chief executive. So that pretty much goes without saying. So the term emergency, as it's in this this plan, um, would be defined under would pretty much be defined under the yeah, I apologize. When we hit that emergency stage 4, I guess is what it's calling here. Yes, he definitely goes into, he has the authority at that point. But like the last drought contingency plan, there was it required a 24-hour notification or emergency meeting to the council so that we can be brought up to speed. And I think that should, if we have a problem Wednesday morning after council meeting, and if we wait 2 weeks to the next meeting before the entirety of the council is brought up to speed, I think we've already failed.
I would think the mayor could call an emergency meeting at any time.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think it should be put in here, because that was one of the problems that I had with the first, in 2023, we had a city manager that done it herself, and a city council and mayor that did not object to it, and they stepped outside of their scope. The city manager did. What I'm saying is that meeting needs to be in this plan, that meeting needs to be called. There's nothing in here other than until the next meeting of the council. And if that's 2 weeks away, we could already be in a bind.
I may be wrong about this, but I was under the assumption that the mayor could call an emergency session and meeting at any time if there is an emergency of sorts, and I didn't know if they need to be referenced specifically. Mr. Mayor, is there an issue with adding that item agenda to this? Because I thought it was already implied. It's my thoughts on it.
Well, I'll real quick, Mr. Mayor, before you speak, that authority should also be given to the city manager, as it was in the previous drought contingency plan. It was the city manager's duty to make sure that this information goes down the pipe to the mayor and to the council to call that meeting.
The city manager does have that authority because he is the manager of the city, and if an emergency happens and it requires shut down the whole system or whatever, he has that authority to do that. Then it would be conveyed to the mayor, who would determine whether there needed to be a special meeting called to bring the council together to take any action.
Okay.
And that's pretty much drawn up through the
Emergency management plan.
well, the order of business basically for the city. And it doesn't have to be water, it's on any item. I mean, if there's an emergency that
Agreed.
comes up.
Yeah.
Then that it goes through those stages.
Okay, so if we go back a stage, to the extreme stage, that's what I'm saying. I totally agree that he's the guy. When we hit emergency, that's what I'm saying. Last time emergency was used in different definitions. I mean, we had an emergency and nobody was called by the city manager. And I think that needs to be addressed. But if we go back to the previous stage, I would argue that if we hit that stage, I think we need to start circling the wagons in, not wait until we hit emergency stage. And at that point, I think within 24 hours of an issue, I think that the council should be called so that they're informed.
If I could clarify some things, I see some of the areas that Thomas has come from, because there was a lot of turbulence and confusion previously, and obviously it wasn't the best plan. At the same time, let's look at some of these clarities and see if this impacts the discussion at all. The going back to the law that you're referencing, the New Mexico statute is kind of like a blank check. It's telling you, hey, you have the right to write an ordinance. So it has no teeth, or, well, I guess it has one tooth. It says you have the right to write an ordinance. but it doesn't give you any authority. It doesn't give you fees, fines, penalties, any of that thing. So that comes from our code of ordinances, section 2715, restricting use. I'm going to say it's very, very vague.
It is.
And it got contentious because people's meters were getting ripped out and fines were being had, but that is outside the scope of the drought contingency plan. The plan points to that ordinance. And I agree that that ordinance probably needs to be changed, but that's a city council factor. And that way you got a good drought plan that points to a good ordinance, but as separate issues. The drought plan, I think, is almost a guideline. It's going to tell the lady next door whether, hey, can I water my plants? Can I not water my plants? Or the guy, can I wash my car? Can I not wash my car? So some of the references in that drought plan really don't go to the degree of law or like that. It's more of a guideline, like a glossary. What does GPM mean? Some people don't know. What does emergency mean? Some people, what do you mean by emergency? Because our levels of emergency may be totally different. If we want to reference those things, it's okay. The more information, the better to a degree. We do want to keep it short enough that people might actually read it. As to the mayoral authority, there's a section in there, 2.2. I really don't think that is necessary in the drought plan. Speaking of mayoral authorities and things like that, here's the structure in our community. The city manager dictates whether this is an emergency or not. He and his role is to stabilize the system. Then if he thinks this is an emergency, he goes to the mayor, and the mayor convenes leadership or the council together. That's the mayor's role. The council authorizes the policy or decides what to do and sends it back to the city manager who executes that policy. So mayoral authority, there is some, but it's almost outside the scope of the drought plan. Could the drought plan implement it? Probably, but I don't think it needs to be defined in this drought plan one way or the other. I think it's almost automatic. The previous drought contingency plan stated the city manager can convene a council meeting. That isn't correct. The city manager can't convene a council meeting. He's part of the executive branch. It has to be convened by the legislative branch, which means the mayor can convene it or a city council majority can convene it. City council has the ability of self-convening. So that helps balance the powers. So we have a lot of issues that previous plans have caused, and the whole purpose is to make those better. But there's also no sense in reinventing the wheel on mayoral authorities or codes of ordinances or laws. This is going to point to those, but unfortunately, you're going to be dealing with those codes of ordinances in a whole nother section as you see fit. Now, if they're weak, I would put it back on your plate is how do we make those laws better? This is still going to point to the law, whether it's weak or strong, but it's up to council to make that law have some teeth, be fair, keep meters from being unhooked and fines from being imposed that may not be legitimate. Anyway, that's 2 cents worth. I don't know if that.
I totally, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And if anything, I think 2.1 and 2.2 could be combined. But my biggest deal is the window of notification to the governing body. You know, if we go into like an extreme stage, I think we need to start circling the wagons. I think that the mayor and or city manager needs to let the governing body know what's going on. You know, because we were behind the curve last time. We were highly behind the curve last time.
I-
And if it was more than, what was told to us versus what actually happened, if it was more to it than that, we need to be notified. Not just in passing, in a press release, not on the agenda. Oh, by the way, we're going into stage 3 tomorrow. That was closing comments from staff when that was mentioned. And it needs to be a lot more defined, maybe not so much additional wording, but we need a window to work with. And I think if we're being told between council meetings, 2 weeks to respond or 2 weeks to go south before we respond, I think that's.
So what are we looking for? A 24-hour notification? That would be notified to the city manager. He would distribute the information.
Well, he's gonna have the information, and of course he would, like Mayor Davidson said, he would contact him. I'm saying that window after he's contacted, do we wait 2 weeks before we get that information on Extreme, or do we wait 24 hours?
I'm not,
I think that would be.
yes, I'm sorry. I don't know how to say it. I don't know what fell through on the previous circumstance. And I definitely see your point about the 2 week window. Well, that's not acceptable. And I'm not sure if we actually follow the way our laws and governance body works. I'm not sure that it could happen that way if we're following protocol. We've directed Mr. Mitten to manage the city, which gives him the authority to declare the emergency or not. So we have placed in his trust the responsibility of declaring the authority. The failure potential of that is that the city manager doesn't declare an emergency when there actually is one. That potentially was a circumstance in the past. I don't know how you write that down to
What I was gonna say.
bind him. He's already bound. If there's an emergency, it's his job responsibility to stabilize the system, declare an emergency. Then it would be my job to convene a meeting as early as legally possible. And that would be what, 40, do you know, Christine, 48 hours?
I think it's 24.
Is it 24 in an emergency?
I think it is.
Okay, let's just say maybe it's 24 in an emergency. So then that would revert to my responsibility, convene a meeting in 24 hours. Now, if it was a catastrophic emergency, I believe through the emergency management system, I may be wrong on this, but I believe in that 24-hour window until council can convene, that it would be the mayor in conjunction with city manager, fire chief, police chief, and office of emergency management to have authority for either the 24 or the 48 hours.
I think in a catastrophic, I believe it's 48 hours, because you got work to do.
Okay.
You don't have to be worrying about
Okay.
being in the council,
So
I think.
whichever it is, so for up to 48 hours or until the crisis is over, that entity would have executive authority of the city. Mayor, city manager, police chief, fire chief, office of emergency management, I believe. So outside of that scope, and then after that point in time, I don't mean to be blunt, but it's your problem and your problem. That's where it goes to the city council for policy
Right.
and direction. And then back to the manager to execute whatever you decide.
That is all gonna hinge completely on the severity of the situation.
Exactly.
I mean, it may be something that had to have immediate action,
Yes.
but once it was handled, and we're back to normal, everything's good, we can go 2 weeks to talk about it. And it may be something that your city manager decides, look, I need to get some some thought on this, and so let's convene a special meeting.
Yeah.
So
And then
it's
you,
gonna be completely related to the severity of the situation, and I don't know if you can actually write that into a policy.
and if you did, is that the purpose of this document?
Right.
Because I still go back to the point that the next door neighbor wants to know if she can water this week or not. Or the guy down the street wants to know if he can wash his car, can he not wash his car? I think that this is a guideline. It's attached to laws, but its purpose is to guide the public as to what can I do, what can I not do. And but I will state that's opinion. Opinion.
Okay.
With respect, I'm gonna close that issue with this. I totally agree, but it was written in the last document. Okay, on how and when. But I on that issue, I want to close with this part. I'm pretending like we're 10 years down the line. We're not sitting here. The city manager's not sitting here, and someone else is going to try to get understanding from a document that we're writing today and what we believe triggers an emergency or an extreme condition. That's kind of what I was looking at, and when to convene the council. So someone 10 years from now is going to be set to interpret what we're doing today and how, what we think the mayor's role is and the city manager's role and when to convene. On that point, I'll close there. And like I said, I had a few and I apologize.
This is what we're doing here. We're trying to get something out here to the city that the council will approve.
Right.
And that's the goal. And if it has to be worked on later, then we work on it again. But the goal was to get something in front of the council that everybody could abide by and agree on. And that's that was my interpretation of what we were trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and mine too.
Please correct.
Mine too. That's why
No, that's
made a
why
few
we're here
notes
to
and-
discuss these things and keep going on them.
The quality of this document is far more important than the speed. I think, Thomas, every single thing that you've talked about, I think is something that needs to be considered and resolved. And I think it just boils down to where is it that we resolve that? Do we resolve it in the law? Do we resolve it in this document? Is it resolved in another document that we haven't even, maybe it's in the emergency management document? I think everything you're stating is very valid. We can't get into the sations we've been in the past. And the whole point of this is to avoid them.
and to my understanding, since you and I have worked on this, or participated in this for the past 2.5, 3 years, that I would say that that's what this committee's for.
Yes.
Is to work through these. And I'll go down through here real quick, on definitions on 3, there again, we're talking about emergency conditions. I think it's too vague. I think we need to define what that emergency condition is, because if we go off of emergency, one may think that we're talking about, a concern. The other person may think we're talking about catastrophic, which triggers you guys. Monitoring system. I think we need benchmarks on where we're at and where we're going. I mean, we're talking about a monitoring system. Well field production, what is the benchmark and how did we come up with the number? Are we basing June's numbers on June the past 5 years and coming up with an average? Where are we coming up with these figures? And in order to implement it, and there again, this is where well field monitoring and metering is going to play an active role in how we move forward with this document. I mean, if right now we don't have that clear, concise information, I don't think that if somebody's got it, then we need to move forward with that. Anybody needs to stop me at any time, that's fine.
Just keep going. We're listening.
Well, I mean, if somebody's got a question on something before I move to the next issue. Water consumption, is that number based on build amounts or is it metered calculation coming out of the well fields in the tank? System pressure and performance. There again, it seems vague. How is the pressure and performance measured and calculated and where? Weather and drought indicators, also vague. What are our starting indicators? There again, current historical values, 3, 5, 10 years. How are we coming up with them numbers? We're using some numbers that I don't know, and maybe I just need the guidance, but I don't know where these numbers are coming from as to where our benchmark is, where we're starting, how we're coming up with these numbers to calculate how we're going to proceed.
My question on that, I
Go
understand
ahead.
where you're going with this,
Uh-huh.
and you keep referring to numbers. Are we just talking about the tank levels? Because that's the only thing we have to go on now? Is that what
Exactly.
you're referring to?
Exactly.
Okay, I just
Um,
need clarification.
That, or,
That's-
you know, if the city is getting some pressure readings and numbers out of the well field, you know, just wherever we're coming up with these numbers, what are these numbers? Where are they coming from? And are we basing it on what's happening today and last year? Or are we going over 3, 5, 10 years? Where are we coming up with this historical data to have a baseline calculation of where we're at, good, bad, or indifferent, you know?
Eric,
If I can, I think, Mr. DeWitt, I think we all agree that already this plan is flawed. Because until we have actual data, you know, good data from consumption, good data from production, you know, we're not gonna ever truly know. And so we've been through these discussions for 2.5 years. You know, I can remember when we were still meeting at the city hall, we were talking about this exact same thing. And so, you know, tank levels are hard to go by, because if you say, okay, you know, if I can't maintain 23 feet, then why am I waiting for 18 feet to go to the next one? I mean, if you're not maintaining, you're not maintaining. And so it's about demand versus available supply. And so we've had a discussion in here before where we've said, okay, you know, what is the calculations of what each well can produce? And can we put some type of Excel sheet together to say, hey, if we're, you know, using 70% of our available supply, we go to this level, 80%, 90%, so on and so forth. You know, where I think it's flawed is that if we're not maintaining at all, we're already in bad shape. You don't wait until you have a problem to start going into different, you know, drought contingency levels. If you still have 5 or 6 wells that produce a good amount of water, well, you're in good shape. You get down to where you only have 1 or 2 left, well, you're not in good shape. You get down to where you're running everything and not maintaining, well, you're in an emergency, because we're giving it all we have. And so until we have the data, you know, I think the whole plan is flawed, but I think we recognize that. We talked about that last month, is that right now, the city, whether it be through whatever option they choose, is looking at getting data for production in the well field and consumption on the consumption side. And so where we can purely or correctly calculate demand versus available supply. I think the goal for now is just to tell the citizens what they can and can't do for the summer. And you know, and that way everyone's clear on what they're working on while we're working on collecting data and whatever those efforts lead to. My comment to your previous point is you must always retain operational control with your city manager and their staff and his staff. And so if it's emergencies, if it's a line break, if it's a power outage in the well field, if it's the tanks squirting out the side, whatever it may be, they need to always be able to establish an emergency and be able to operationally control what's going on. Now, what y'all do after that, as far as how you notify and who establishes a long-term emergency, I think that's fine, but they always need to have day-to-day operational control. But with that, I think, you know, maybe something you could look at, and I hate to go back to the drawing board again. But you know, if we're not necessarily looking in this plan for day-to-day operational emergencies, right? I think we've established that through these comments in the last few minutes. We're really looking to set policy for, you know, what should the everyday water user expect to be able to do all throughout the year. You could easily add into here seasonally, where you say, hey, you know, as we get into summer months, we're going to automatically step into whatever stage. And then we know that when we don't have as much demand on the system in the fall and the spring or whatever it may be, maybe you move to a different stage. But I just think it's flawed to even wait to get to 28 feet, to 23 feet, to 18 feet, to 15 feet to be making decisions, because if we're not maintaining, we're not maintaining. And so I think it's already too late at that point, but you guys have heard me say that many times. I think we're just trying to establish what can we do while we're waiting on the data to get here. And so those are my comments. But it's hard for me to, and then I told all of you that it's hard for me to even support a document at all that's going off tank levels. We need to be going off of available water supply.
And to your point on that, tank levels at this moment is all we have to go on.
But
That's the only
my
part.
point is once it's
It's
here,
too late.
it's dropping. I mean,
It's too late.
we're not maintaining. Yeah.
It's too late. Absolutely, I agree with that.
Well,
I
I'm
think
gonna
the point of this,
go ahead.
I think the point of this document would be more to the point of, once again, we need to get the council something that they have something that they can fall back on. This is a flawed document. They're always gonna be flawed, but it also has provisions in there. As these new systems come online, SCADA system in the well field, the new metering system, as this comes along, this is already built into it to account for that, so we can work with. This is not a final, this is our plan. This gets our plan started, and we will augment it and change it as necessary going down the road as more technologies become available.
I understand that.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're on the same.
I understand that we're just trying to
Okay.
get something done until we have better solutions. And so I understand that, but you know, as far as operational control and emergencies, you have to leave that with the city manager.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I'm at his disposal. So, you know, a great big sense of frustration is knowing that we're dealing with a flawed plan and that's all we have to choose from. It's like, well, let's start with plan B and try to make the best of it. That is frustrating. Our original document, I handed it to an expert after finding out the city had one. When I first started inquiring, the city didn't even know if they had one, and they discovered it and sent it to me. And I had a water expert tell me, Mike, y'all don't have a drought contingency plan. And at that time, I'd just gotten started in some of the water stuff. And I said, okay, that's great. What's a drought contingency plan? And they explained it. And I asked the city manager and she found it, gave it to me, and I sent it back to her. And she goes, Mike, that's not a drought contingency plan. So it's been flawed from the first time that I've ever seen it. It's going to be flawed now. And here's the abstract idea. If we choose to do this now, that it's been missing in action for so long that, and we know something's better is coming up to where we can accurately get numbers and things like that. So it's going to be up to the board to determine the direction you want to go. But while these calls have been going out to tell us what we need to do this summer. So we have got to have something to present to the public to tell them what they can do for this summer, whether it's this or something else.
I think we're wrestling with two different pieces here. I think the problem that we're wrestling with is what is an emergency and who decides. That's where I think we're getting mucked up. I feel like as the advisory committee working on the contingency plan, if you take it from when it's recognized or when it's accepted or declared a contingency or an emergency forward, I think we're in business. Because there's going to be a lot of things. In a different world that I worked in previously doing this, what we would have said is, I'm going to allow you to plan, but I'm going to give you your limiting factors. You're not allowed to talk about SCADA. You're not allowed to talk about ultrasonic meters because we don't have them. You're not allowed to talk about anything except what we have right now, which is tanks, wells, etc., because that's what we have. When we get SCADA and all that, we'll come back to the drawing board and we'll do an addendum and a summary of changes. But right now, we're going to talk about what we have. And we're going to say with what we have, once an emergency is declared by the city manager or mayor or any other body, because that's what could happen. Now's what happens. phase one, chain of notification. Two, go into water restrictions, 1, 2, or 3, and identify what those are. And I think that would help us get down the road with what we have, what we know we have today. Because you're right, Eric, they're coming. We're buying them. We're getting the meters and all that. But until then, I mean, I don't know. Seismic can crash into Johnston Hill at any time we put a big hole in the tanks. And then somebody would have to say that's an emergency and we'd have to go into it. So. You know, I don't know if that helps or hurts, but I think that the planning for a drought contingency plan should be, once declared, now what do we do? What are the phases?
We just keep going in circles on this thing because we just.
It's only been
We've
2.5
all
years.
come to the point that until we can get data. This is basically just it's a document that just gives you a rubber wall to bounce up against over here and a rubber wall to bounce up against
Kind
over
of-
here, but you got a lot of
Counselor,
area.
The only data we
So-
really have right now is tanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we can theorize.
I think you could come in and say seasonally for the summer, we're gonna do plan X. And if the city staff sees that we are using up more than 90% or whatever number you want to say of our well field, then we go to plan Y. And if we get to where we're using 100% of our well field, then we go to plan Z. And I think that would at least get you through for now. But
But where does the well field number come from?
they have a sheet where
Do they?
we've talked about
Okay.
that before, where they say, hey, you know, we have X amount of wells. This well puts out 200 gallons a minute. This one puts out 20 gallons a minute, so on and so forth. And they can say, hey, based off of what we're seeing flow and what wells we have on, we think, and it's not completely accurate, but we think we're putting out X amount of gallons per minute. But we think in totality, we could put out Y amount of gallons a minute. And as long as we're not using too much of that percentage, you want to always have a few wells in back for backup. That way, if you get in a bad situation, you can turn them all on. If we're waiting until all of the wells are turned on and we're still dropping, it's too late. But I'm not trying to make you go back to the drawing board.
No. Like I said,
It's just tough.
we're in a no-win situation, but at some point, we do have to present boards a drought. We have tank levels to go off of. We have a program here that says, all right, as these other ones come online, we can go back and do this. This is not set in stone. This is something to get us started. We haven't had a drought contingency plan. The last one I saw, what did you say? It was a little blurb on the city page.
Yeah, a little snapshot.
A snapshot. I think this is infinitely better than that. Is it perfect? No. Is it going to be? No. Is it something we can strive for and work for? Moving ahead with the SCADA system and all these other monitoring? I think that's, once we get this, that's where we need to be putting our emphasis, is making sure that we do have a monitoring process. And I think that's where this board would become influential, working with the new programs. If they bring us something they want to approve, we're not gonna mess around. Let's get on it, get it done.
What kind of data from us would help you? Because I'm kind of hearing two things. I'm going to go back to the emergency. I'm kind of hearing right now talking about routine water conservation measures moving into like temporary periods. That's kind of what I'm hearing. We're going into the summer, it's hotter, theoretically, we're gonna use more water kind of stuff, less water is available until the deluges start, but that's kind of what I'm hearing right now. What proactive measures do we go into just because we're there on the calendar? That's one thing. Another thing I'm hearing is what happens when there's a hole in Johnston Hill tanks. Bona fide emergency, you don't need data for that, water's coming out of the thing. That one will take care of itself. But if we're talking about pro forma measures, we know when we hit June, or we're gonna start cutting back on water and what those measures are, et cetera. What do you need? If that's what you're talking about, which I think kind of you are, what do you need from us? Do you need 3 years of January through December water flow, so you get the idea of what we use, et cetera? Would that help? Because we can get it. It wouldn't take too long.
I think that helps set a benchmark.
Any information we have to work with, the better.
Well, peak, we use 2.46 million gallons a day. We got 3 million gallon tanks. During the peak season, we use 3.36 million gallons per day. And we have peak days that are 5 million gallons. So we're coming up to peak season.
I might be stepping out of line, but I think Councilman Merrick had a comment that he was wanting to make. I thought it looked like you were gonna make a comment a few minutes ago.
No, I mean, it's,
Okay.
we're down to. You've got 38 wells that are pumping, correct? Out there in the
37,
middle.
38, yeah.
37. Okay. As Eric was trying to allude to earlier. If we're sitting here right now and we've got 30 wells running. To keep up with the demand that we have. Going into the tank. You've got a very small window of reserve there unless you've got some of your better producing wells in that group too. And there's where your variation comes, because you've got wells out there that are putting out 20 and 30 gallons a minute. You got wells that are putting out 120 or 30 gallons a minute. So you shut one of those wells down, that's your big producer. All of a sudden you created a vacuum there that those other wells that are offline may not be able to make up for. If some of your big producing wells go down, you're in trouble.
Right. But now we're back into emergency.
Yes.
So
So
again, I think we're talking two things. I think we're talking conservation. I think we're talking emergency.
it is, but I mean, you've got to react to that. So then we've got the sandhill wells that are basically just sitting up there idle. We don't use those until we have to.
That's
And,
correct. But I think if we actually just say you guys approve this plan right now. In the meantime, I can give it to water guys and see how we can base a system off the wells themselves and what they're producing and their capabilities and see how that goes in the meantime, because honestly, we do need some form of guidance right now. You know, if we can't hash this out right now, we're just pushing everything back.
But we have a plan right now, right? Just not a deadline.
Yeah, we got this, and if this is approved, we could actually look at the way we really want to do. We got a couple of things going in the wells. We're gonna start getting better data on at least a few of the wells pretty soon. And how they're producing and everything else, and hopefully within a year, we should. That's our goal, is to get meters out there pretty quickly and in town, so. We can build, like y'all said, we just need some guidance right now. The tanks, yes, that's mainly how we've been going, but at the same time, our water guys are gonna be looking at the production of what their wells are capable of, how much are we pushing? And if we're getting too close to actually not keeping up, at that time, we can actually give that information to the city manager and the mayor. They can make a decision.
Well, let me ask you a question on this. You look this over, you see this tank levels, we all agree that's what we have, but it's not great. Would this document help you in dealing with the public? Would you be able to answer questions with more
As a
authority?
guidance to the
Is
public,
this-
yes.
Does it give you any leverage in
Yeah,
dealing with situations? Is this
it
something
really
that would be
does. I think the
beneficial?
only thing in here that we would probably put is, that this is subject to change at any point if the wells go down or something like that, you know what I mean?
Would that be constituted as emergency?
Yeah, if emergency arises, then these guidance, will go into whatever emergency action we can take.
I would argue it lends to expectation management. So if it's accepted for the time being, no matter what length that time is, and it's published, then it gives the public an element of expectation management. When this time comes, this is the next thing that we're going to likely go into. And after that, into this one and so on. And then, of course, if an emergency happens, wells come offline or something else happens, then we readdress and go from there. But it gives us a plan, and not only does it make it expectation management worthy, it expedites the process and it takes decisions out of having to think about things and make decisions when event X, Y, or Z happens. You know what you're doing next. So it allows the lowest person on the totem pole to enact a measure to safeguard the city, regardless of who we do or don't contact. We know what we're doing next, and then we rally at that point and start figuring out how to fix the city.
Pat,
So
did you have
I argue any document is better than no document.
Pat, did you have something else on that? Do you have anything else on that?
No, I'm gonna, it's like the demand goes up. And the well's at 28, but it starts dropping, we ain't gonna wait till 15 feet to start talking, you know, if we know it's dropping, it's probably gonna, we gotta go into emergency quickly, so. I think the demand is probably our bigger number to look at than the well itself.
When you said emergency, you mean stage level?
Yeah, stage level,
Okay. I just
but
wanna
you know,
make sure.
you go
See-
above 91%, you're right there,
That's-
you're already using way more money, water than we're producing, so. We're gonna have to,
And again, I think that's my problem, and I appreciate that we're trying to get something done, so there's no offense to anyone. But that's my problem, is if we're not maintaining tank levels. It's already too late, it doesn't matter if it got from 23 to 28 to 23 to 18 to
Yeah.
15.
We got a
But
problem.
to his point, we're not gonna wait to tell the public, oh, we're at 15, let's establish the emergency level. And then, oh, by the way, we had a power outage in the well field that night. And now we don't even have enough water for our fire supply, for our fire extinguishers to have proper PSI to do what they need to do over the night. And so, I mean, your tank levels are supposed to help you ride through outside emergencies. And so you need, if you're not maintaining tank levels, it's already, to me, too late.
I remember a case in point this last summer. And this is why I think we need to be spending more time. Getting our CEC and their ability to get us some. Meters out there and some ability to control the wells. Is a crucial thing because last year. We were going through some council meetings and Eric came up, not this Eric, Duran. One day it said, our tank levels are dropping. We may need to look at going into a different stage. Well, come to find out, there was a well, one of our big producers. That they hadn't drove by in a couple of days and it was down. Yeah. And they turned it on and everything leveled out. It was good. But, I mean, that's how critical we are on our production right now. We're staying up,
Or one
but
pump away.
we're just one big well away from kind of being in a crisis. So if we can get that monitoring equipment out there to where we know what's actually going on, that's crucial.
No.
So
absolutely.
so we gotta come up with some funding somewhere to get that implemented, get those, we can just get that end of it done. The city part of it, yes, it needs to be done, but it's not as crucial as the well field.
A couple of things. The majority of our water comes from 10 wells out there. So to your point, that's exactly correct. It would not take very much to bring this system down. And to another factor, I guess, to address how hard this has been to deal with, the city of Roswell spent $250,000 to draw a drought contingency plan. So it's not that this is an easy thing to do. So
Theirs is what, 17 pages?
I don't know.
27 pages. I looked at it the other night.
and they pump 48,000 gallons a minute in the city of Roswell. So they actually don't have a water problem at this point in time.
And I said I looked at it. I didn't read it.
Yeah.
I don't read it.
So, you know, yes, it's taken a long time, but we also got to look at what we've been working with. And this isn't, like you said, this isn't the best plan, but the last point would be if we need to gray out the part about flow and meters and all that to make sure that that is a future addendum, then we need to do that or leave it out totally. I mean, if that's, we don't want to cause confusion or misleading elements. My thought was let them know that a better system is on the way that we're not using yet, but it's up to y'all.
That was one of my deals was, you know, we're talking about a production / usage ratio that we don't have. So I think what you just said there, Mr. Mayor, is a really good point. If we could gray that out and the people know that we're trying to hook up meters and get a good firm grip on the numbers, I think that will give direction that it shows that we're working on something to be determined later and they can see it, because right now we don't have that metrics to work in there to as part of this formula. It's just not there. You know, so we're putting a bunch of what we're gonna do in with something we don't have. And all we have is tank levels, and arguably we do have a drought contingency plan. It is an old one. It is highly flawed because it falls back to the tanks. I want to close real quick with this part. Okay, first and foremost, I know where the authority is. I'm not bucking that. I have no problem with that. That authority was supposed to be there in 2023. And a city manager and council did not abide by that authority. I just want to make sure that people knows how this is broke down. But I am not taking anything away from a man that's got to get out there with a shovel and fix a hole to make sure I've got water. What I am saying is if we're in an extreme situation, I think the council needs to be notified in a timely manner. Not 2 weeks. I think that these guys can still work. That's not taking anything away from them. We just need to know what's going on. Because at the 2023 incident, when I talked to about half of the council individually, they didn't have a clue. They didn't have a clue. There was never a vote that we go into a next stage. I'm not saying that there should be a vote. I think we should take, some consideration of what the experts and people in the field on the ground are saying, but we need to have notification, to show up one evening and find it nowhere historically. You can go back and look. An emergency was never mentioned. It was never on an agenda historically in the mayor's notes. I mean, excuse me, in the previous city manager's notes, it was not there. So in effect, it looks like we were just telling people what to do and then pulling their meters out of the ground because they weren't doing it. And I think we need to have a little bit more accountability and transparency as far as that goes. And I think the council needs to be at the front of that. That was my point. And I was asked to as the rest of the committee was asked to give my thoughts on the document. I gave you my thoughts on the document and what I thought was some shortcomings. I totally agree with Councilman Merrick, with Mr. Segovia, with the mayor. I agree with everything that's been said here. I just think we need some clarity. I don't think there should be any ambiguity as to some of these issues that are brought up.
Well, then let me ask you this. If we go to 4.1 monitoring the system, and we, as suggested, remove, I don't care to remove anything from the document. I would rather gray out the well field production capacity. Can we get those notes? Is that something we would have? Pat, is that something you could provide us? Well field production capacities? Is that something we can get?
Yes.
We can leave that in. Water consumption, that would be based on metering, and there's going to be a 1 month delay on that. Am I correct when they read?
Yes.
City, since we don't have another way of monitoring?
Yes.
Okay, so we might want to grade that one out until we get better monitoring. Storage tank levels, that's all we have to work with. That's what we're basing on, right?
Yeah.
System pressure and performances. Would you grade that one out? Can we monitor that? Is something you can give me true data on, or is that something that we just
I'm
need to
sure they
say?
monitor it. I'm not sure if they collect any data.
So I'm gonna say that's a gray area.
Well, is that something that Mr. Mendoza would?
I'd have to ask him with it.
We need a lot of his input. I'm not
Absolutely.
taking anything from you. He's the guy in the field. We really need Mr. Mendoza's information.
Yes.
He's in the field.
And weather and drought indicators can be left in because everybody can walk outside and look at the sky and see if it's hot and dry.
I don't know. I've seen people watering while it was raining, so
Well,
go figure.
okay. So my thoughts would be, this is my suggestion, we grab those two items. We have a document here that is superior to what we're working off currently. And if I was to bring this to the city council, as is with those three remarks straight out, is this something the council could get behind? Well, council, I'm just asking you,
I know, I don't know if I'm allowed to answer that.
can you answer that or not?
I don't think I'm allowed to answer that.
Probably not.
I'm asked, being asked a voted question. I can't
Yeah.
answer that. Sorry.
Well, the best I can. Sorry.
That's all right.
I'm just trying to establish that we have something we can work with. It does need work going forwards. It's not perfect. And we are building on this on a daily basis. Out in the fields, the monitoring, all these things will come in line in time. But today we need something, and this is what we have.
A recommendation, to Mr. DeWitt's point, emergency condition says a condition posing immediate risk to water supply, public health, or critical water infrastructure. I think one of the reasons that those got put in there like that is a previous plan. We had started a glossary and it read that glossary and it interpreted that. So emergency, that's defining that for the public. I think that could be beneficial to add, public health or critical water infrastructure, such as significant loss of production capacity, critical storage depletion, contamination, or system failure. That way, to Mr. DeWitt's point, it gives a little bit more indicator as to what we think an emergency is. It doesn't leave it so up in the air. Possibly. Just add a very small descriptor after that.
That can be added to the stock.
And section 2.2 of mayoral authority, I don't even see any points for that, but that's just me. 2.2 mayoral authority. We're relying on a document to kind of supersede our general structure. So that's a possibility to just take that part out of there. We have a system, city manager, and also we're having to trust to the city manager. So city manager stabilizes, mayor calls for the meeting, council authorizes the policy, city manager implements the policy. That is our structure.
Okay. All right, any more comments? What do we want to do with this document? And do we want to go back, review it one more time and bring it back at the next meeting? Do we want to make some changes and submit it now?
Well, it's on here, present draft and drought contingency. It's not on here as an action, so.
Yes.
It is in that.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is it action or
Oh, I'm sorry.
and discussion?
Slash
Or
action.
just action?
It's discussion.
I stand corrected.
Okay, so you
Okay,
can
correct.
still modify it if you want.
So if we were to approve this one today, because we all agree that this one is at least better than the one that's in place now. If we approve this one, it can still be changed as more data, more information, more things become available.
I'm gonna
And I know that we're just approving it to send to council. Right?
give y'all a really scary thought here. The minute you pass this document, if you do, to approve to council, I hope you begin working on the next one. Because this, all along, we have a dynamic water situation. So we cannot have a static document with a dynamic water situation. 2 months from now, we may be in a totally different thing. So we have got to
Hopefully we are.
keep modifying this document and keep it precise and pinpoint as to our current situation. So it's kind of scary that it's taken us 2.5 years to get to this point and even thinking about starting that process again. But honestly, I hope we do. It's like going up a rope, man. I got Eldenism. It's like going up a rope, you know, and we reach this far. Now we reach for there. Now we reach for there. So if you think it's an improvement, let's recommend it to council. If you want to refine it, let's refine it.
And I hate to prolong the conversation, I'm sorry, but I just have if we're gonna go up tank levels, I already think it's flawed.
Yeah.
But
I agree.
But the emergency being at 15 feet, to Mr. Gagos's point, that's way too low. 15 feet's the minimum to keep the system at the proper pressure to operate. Anytime you get below that, I mean, you have a failure not just at the tank level, but in town as well, right? And then you're not leaving yourself any contingency for additional emergencies. Or if there's a big fire, well, if we have to start using fire hydrants in town, but the moment you turn those on, we've already dropped below 15 feet. And so we're not leaving any contingency for other emergencies to happen that rely on the water system. And so 15 feet at the emergency level, to me, it's already too late. It's extremely too late. And so that's the only comment I'd like for you all to look at, because I think from the city staff point of view, fire department's not going to hear that we waited until 15 feet to call the emergency. They want to call it sooner. That way they have, some contingency built in for their systems as well.
Mr. Chair, I had a quick question for Mr. Gallegos. Can we tell anything off of rate of depletion? So we're at 28 feet. Everybody's using water. How far does it come down for normal usage? How far does it come down if we busted a line? Is there anything there that we can use as a trigger when we see them tanks levels starting to come down? Do they come down a foot in 24 hours because everybody's watering? Are they coming down at 3 foot because we got a busted line? I think that would help with the where that tank level's going.
I'm sure there is. It's just, I'm sure there is, but we'll have to ask the water guys.
Yeah, if we could
As
find
for
that out.
today, I would suggest, as much as I hate working groups, I would suggest we do one good working group with my water guys and whoever else wants to go, look over this plan, give their thoughts of the best way, and then represent it. That's what I would suggest. And we can get that working group done prior to your next meeting.
And one question I have, when you get ready and we do this working group or whatever, I know Mayor Davidson gave some information on how much water is used daily, the 2 point, however many. Do you know those figures, were those obtained when? Yes, so that's my question, is I can just tell off of what the co-op's doing. When we stayed, because we stayed in stage 3, our consumption is just consistently going down. I just did month-end numbers for February before I came this morning, and we're still down. I think we were down 300,000 from January and February of 25, January and February 26. So that's my question is, I agree with Eric, tank levels, once you're responding to those, it's too late. We're done. So that's what I'm curious about, is even the 5 million in the peak. Were those with any kind of restrictions, or are those just an average number based over the last 10 or 15 years? Or were those during the city's unpopular stage 3 water
I
restrictions?
couldn't tell you
Okay,
any of that right now.
okay.
I could tell you where the numbers came from, but I can't answer that question either. That was something that was submitted to a professional. I can't remember if it's DBSNA or the Wilson and Company, but one of them did a presentation and that was on their slide. So
I was just curious.
I just wanna. We go off of it like it is written currently. We put this before the council and they vote on it and approve it. You're automatically not gonna be able to enforce what we're doing currently, because we've got everybody on a limited watering schedule and all that stuff right now. If our tanks are full, you can't declare that we're in a conservation stage. And they can go back to water. And then you can create a problem. So there's where the flaw is, in my view, of this plan. This is going off tank levels. It doesn't truly reflect the situation that we're in, because I agree. You've gotta know the percentage of wells that we've got in production. You've gotta know what they're producing. You gotta know all of that stuff before you can actually come up with, are we at our max, or are we at 70%? Are we, so.
Along those lines, I mean, I like the logic, but that logic has two sides to it, right? So let's say we are monitoring the wells and the wells are doing great. And let's say the wells are pumping enough water, and let's say the wells can refresh the, and I'm finding no flaw in what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, be prepared to come out of water stage, whatever. If the wells say that we're healthy and we can meet your demand, if it's 5 million or 5 million or 5.5. So we either have to write something in that says no matter what, we stay in this is the new normal. Or we say, if we can meet your requirements, then water away. Because if the wells are healthy, if we get them tuned up, if we SCADA monitor them, and if for all intents and purposes, flow shows that we're good to go, then we have to be prepared to go either direction. Restrict water, or say there's no restrictions, and wash your car, fill your pool, and water your cactus. De-water cactus, I mean.
Very little.
So there's no flaw with what you're saying at all. It's just, it goes both ways.
Well, they-
Go that direction.
I mean, you're looking at it from numbers point because you weren't here during the part where we were struggling to keep up with the level. I've still got that history where we had a time there where it was really pretty tough to keep the tanks full. And we've done a lot of work since then. We've reworked some wells, we've brushed casings, we've got water flowing better than it was. And we've come back to a point where we're still, our aquifer, our static levels haven't come up. We haven't gained more wells yet. We've got that in the process, hopefully. So it's hard for me to do anything that's gonna create that situation again.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of have to keep in my mind that, yeah, we're doing okay right now and everything looks good, but it could change quick. So, and then there's no going back once you get to that point where you get to the point that you pump them dry, then you can't just go back out there and fill them back up.
Sure, I'm not an advocate by any means of wasting water.
Yeah.
And one thing that I did say when I was making the comment is if we write in and sign in ordinance or otherwise, that this is the new normal. I mean, stage 1 is stage 2 type of thing. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's the new normal, then that probably might need to be done. Because as we fight for efficiencies that will come, and when they start to manifest themselves, it may appear that we have more water than we know what to do with if we do things right. But if we write it in there that the new normal is we kind of start restrict water after this much usage to protect the environment, the aquifer, and other things. And maybe that's what we have to do as part of the drought contingency plan. But maybe part of the drought contingency plan is to make sure we don't create the drought. That we don't create the emergency by keeping our water utilization to a specific level. And then if we exceed that, then we start to cut back a little bit. Not uncommon. Idaho does it all the time during the summer seasons. They start to put out water things to cut back on usage, waste of water and things like that. Parts of California do it, and people do it. So we can do it too, just something to consider.
I do think we need something seasonal. We did write in there is, at least now there is a more conservative watering schedule.
Yeah.
Already written in there compared to before. Yes. So the very best scenario is moderate staging, but it's still as opposed to allowing everyone to just water whenever, however, it is a more conservative watering schedule. It's only 2 days a week.
Yeah.
For one address, 2 days. So I think that's gonna help, but I also agree with Eric is we may have to make this not only a moderate, severe, extreme emergency, it may have to be a seasonal type that from, because we all know it's getting closer. It's there, everybody's gonna kind of want to start to pretty up their yards for Easter, and then we're getting into spring and people are gonna start planting flowers. You're gonna see it's gonna start going up, and if we don't have even more conservative watering schedules planned into those hot summer months, we're gonna get right back to where Eldon said we were, and I don't think any of us want to be there again.
Right.
I certainly know my members don't want to be.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we postpone a decision on this today until we can rally a working group with Mr. Gallegos and his team so that we got numbers that we can clean this up and move forward from there.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? All opposed, same sign. Okay. Pat will get with you, just get us some dates. Let's coordinate this and let's get this on the board. Let's get moving on it.
Okay.
Let's get this figured out because every time we open this can of worms, there's gonna be just more. At some point, there's gonna be a bad taste in everybody's mouth about something on this, but at some point, it's very soon, we need to put schools. Okay, next item. Update on the water rate study. We have anything on that?
As far as I understand, they went with Waterworks to get a water rate study and speaking with them today. I guess initial data wasn't that great, which we understand that because our meters data and all that stuff is not that great. So basically it's at a standstill is what I understand. So, along with with the water conservation and everything else, we need correct data to do some of this stuff. So that's where we're at with the rate study right now. So, and I believe once we get meters, we'll probably get a better rates study done for our rates at that point. I'm not sure direction, but that's where we're at right now.
Do we, and this is just a question, do we have to have a rate study? I think it's obvious our rates are too low. Do we have to have a rate study recommendation to do an increase? I'm not talking drastic, I mean just a small percentage, because we're not covering our costs. Is that something we have to have?
I don't believe so, but I would have to look into that, but I don't believe we do. I think the data is probably the best, is what we really need to see what actually people are using.
Yeah, I agree. We use Waterworth at the co-op too, and it's so much more beneficial than reactive rate changes, which is what the co-op was doing for as long as I can remember. It's just so nice, the Waterworth, if you can get the data in there, they can tell you, okay, if you want to do this project, this is what it might take, or, or here's all the costs that goes into produce that water. Here's what you're selling it for. This is what you're, it's just, it's amazing all the information that you can get out of it and all the what ifs and the scenarios and the different stuff. But I do, and to me, I get your question, but if you don't have the data to put into the Waterworth rate study, do you really have the data to determine a rate increase?
My only point on that was all this improvements were put in the well field. This is all tied together.
Yes, it is.
And the money would be helpful with some of this stuff, even if it's just $1 a month, $2 a month. I mean, a very nominal change, and we can help use that money to fund the expansion in the well fields and anything else. I don't know how that will play out. These are just questions I'm asking.
So, Mr. Merrick, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know you have some knowledge about the rates that were voted to raise incrementally in 2022. And we did have incremental rates forecasted. I think it was like 10% in the first year, 15%, 15% in the second, third, and fourth years, etc. But it kind of slowed down.
That was actually before I went on.
Yeah, so it was, as far as for the co-op, it was a 75% rate increase the first year. Then it was a 25% rate increase the second year. And then after that, it was a 12% every year for the next 5 years, I think.
Right.
And then just the general city, I think their initial rate increase was 12, maybe, does that sound right? I think it was a 12, I have it at the office. It was,
Same thing.
it was a 12%. Then I think it was a maybe
like 12, maybe 10. To me,
12,
like
10, and
12.
then 8, I think. Yeah, I think
But
something like that. But
somewhere along the line, it's voted upon to have a 10-ish% increase initially, and then over per year for the next handful of years. And somewhere that's died off.
It slowed down, but it never got out.
Well,
Okay, so I was fixing to say. is
The
this not
motion-
now?
if you go back and look at the motion and watch the meeting, the motion was for the first year, it was approved. So it was approved for that recommendation, and then they were gonna come back and revisit. So they approved that first 12%, 25% for us and for everybody else. And then, but that's all they would approve. And then they said they wanted to come back and see, they wanted the city manager at the time to establish a partnership with Waterworth, just all these different things. Yeah. And then it's like Eldon said, then it never came back and appeared back on
So
the
how about we
agenda.
pull the data on that for you and we do a presentation to both, for discussion to both city council and water advisory group. And maybe we start with the rate analysis there. Because we might have to go back and pick up where we left off, because if I'm not mistaken, some stuff was signed and some stuff was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That would be fantastic.
Well, Pat, I know you're busy, but let's.
Just one more thing, Pat.
Add it to the
Pat,
You got big shoulders.
He thought he was going out of town.
list.
I am going out of town, or else you won't have me next week, cause my wife.
No. You're fine, you're going out of town.
Okay, so, all right. Any future items for the next agenda?
Well, I think we just identified one there, and then I'll have a discussion item on the agenda about grants and your involvement with the racking and stacking grants as well. And then we will talk water meters. I think we will talk all things 37 metered wells with SCADA devices next meeting. We'll talk about that. We might have some fun. We can use to do that as quickly as possible.
Yeah, because I think we already have the meter company coming at the next meeting as well.
So,
Yes, and resource wise.
okay, so on the next meeting, we're gonna have to move it because it's gonna go over, because I didn't know we had presenters next meeting. We have a very short window for the next meeting, so we're gonna have to move that.
Unless we move it, the location.
Oh, because is there
Is it the
something else?
location or is it, okay,
They've got a meeting here.
I won't be able to record it if we don't do it in here.
What if we do it at City Hall? Still
So
not.
then we could just do whatever we wanted.
If you want, we can do the 13th, that Friday.
It's bad.
Friday the 13th.
I don't know, my grandson was in from Friday.
So what's wrong? There's a meeting after?
There's a 10:30 library meeting that's always on the first or the second Tuesday.
And not to
Can-
be, can
Can
they?
they move?
That's.
Yeah.
I could ask to move them to, I can ask them if I can move them to the 17th.
Okay.
Or a different location.
I have to record them too.
Can we set it tentatively for the 10th and see if they? Because I do already have them set for them. Resource wise.
I can talk to Tana and we'll do a shift.
Okay.
okay, that'd be great.
Perfect.
Keep it on the 10th at 9 a.m. since we do have prisoners coming.
Mr. Chair, before we go any further, if Mr. Gallegos can have that working group before then, should we not put that, whatever we determine from the working group on the agenda?
DCP.
I'm not trying to push you. I'm just saying, I'd like to get it on the agenda if we have that working
Well,
group before
let
then.
me see if I can get it done before that, and if so, then I can.
Then just
put it.
perfect.
Okay,
Absolutely.
okay.
Yeah.
Fair
You're
enough.
gonna be gone next week.
Huh?
You're gonna be gone next week.
Only if he
No.
doesn't get out of town this weekend.
But it is a short week next week for.
Yeah, because
kids'
you
day.
guys are off on Friday, that's right.
What?
Not my rules.
Employee appreciation, it's part of one of our holidays.
Okay, we appreciate.
Yeah, that's why I'm not meeting on the 13th, because ours is the next Friday.
Yeah, so, but let me see what I
Okay.
can do.
I wasn't trying to accelerate that. I just, if we did get that, I'd like to make sure it gets on the agenda.
No, absolutely, so.
Okay, so we'll just leave that as the 10th at 9 a.m. and we'll try to get everything rescheduled and then we'll wait for an update. Anything else?
I will move I will move library.
Okay,
So
perfect.
y'all
Thank
are
you.
gonna be good.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Okay. One motion's out of here. No. Okay,
Need a motion to.
adjournment. Thank you very much.